Hello everyone, it is indeed great pleasure to be part of the conference. I'm Dr. Shiva Shakthi and I'm going to talk on behalf of the No Nonsense Science Club in India. The topic for today is science communication, a multilingual approach. Here is the overview of the talk. First, I'll talk about who we are as a club, the No Nonsense Science Club. Then I'll talk about what these myths and misinformation do in the society. Then we'll see the role of social media in propagating these myths. And finally, I'll talk about the topic that we predominantly work on, that is the usage of multilingual approach in communicating science, especially in a country of lingual diversity like India. So, before going into the presentation, I would like to start with a quote by one of my favorite freethinkers of all time, Narendra Dabholkar. So, he said, "A scientific temperament is a process of thinking, a method of action, a search of truth, a way of life, and spirit of a free man." And this also serves as the motto for our club, the No Nonsense Science Club, and we firmly believe in it and work according to this. So, who we are, the No Nonsense Science Club, how we formed. So, the No Nonsense Science Club is a group of like minded individuals. It was actually formed by me and another science writer and communicator, Roop Kata. And we started it during the COVID pandemic. We thought that a lot of myths and fake information was being spread through social media. For example, take the case of coronavirus itself. There were cases when people started telling that the virus is actually a bioweapon and not a actual virus or a biological body. So this made a lot of people ignore treatment and move according to their choice because they were believing in false information. So we thought that as a citizen, it is our responsibility to inculcate the spirit of scientific temper in people and also instill in them the sense of curiosity and inquiry and instill this sense of questioning the information which is present to them. So, right now, we are a group of about 20 to 30 individuals who have come together to debunk myths and also propagate this again through social media. So, if false information is spreading through social media, our motto is beat it again with social media. We also write on the intersection of science and society. For example, we write about the access of science for different marginalized community. We write about caste in science, homophobia in science, and so on. So right now we are translating content in about 10 Indian languages. We write in English, but most of the translation happens in other languages. So myths and misinformation in science. So if you look closely, a lot of myths and misinformation surround us. It is something not isolated, but rather it is present within us, around us, and so on. And we as people are also carriers of such false information. We don't think most of the time while accepting an information or propagating that information forward. Take the example of WhatsApp. What happens is we receive a forward, and if the forward is sensational, I use the word sensational because that's exactly where false information lies. These messages we forward without giving much thought. So, this is actually the root cause of the propagation of myths and misinformation. And as I said, with the advent of media, especially social media, the propagation has become exponential. So, a retweet or a share or a forward is enough. So, if one person forwards it to four people and the four people forward it to eight people, it's just going to be exponential in nature. And finding who is at fault is very difficult. So, it is in the hand of each one of us to counter these myths which are present in the society. So social media has actually formed as a vicious cycle. So let us say there is a myth. For example, let us again take the case of the bioweapon. It is something sensational. So this myth goes through a couple of forwards to people. People don't give much thought about it. There are, of course, people who think about it, they counter, and there are debates and arguments, but there is also another section of people who don't think much but rather forward. It goes through retweets, it goes through shares, and finally, what happens is that when this happens, there is a reinforcement of the myth. So, what was called a bioweapon, has actually turned into a hatred for a country, because people, what they think is that it was the Chinese who started it. So what has started as a bioweapon, now people start targeting the country because of a false information. So there is this reinforcement which constantly happens, which is indeed very, very bad for the society as a whole. So what are the implications of it? Is that there is very little to no awareness of what actually is happening, because we don't think, we don't ask questions. So there is very little awareness. There are a lot of misconceptions. Leave aside bioweapons, take for example solar eclipse. For example, in India, I know about India. So in India, people often say that you're not supposed to eat during solar eclipse. Why? We don't know. They say it's not good. The sun rays which fall on the food during solar eclipse are very dangerous, so you're not supposed to eat. You're not supposed to touch plants during menstruation is another common myth which is prevalent in India. And in many cases, this propagation of myths and these misconceptions has even led to fatality. For example, chickenpox, measles are believed to be the fury of goddess. Right? These are not believed to be viral diseases, but rather people think that it is because of the fury of particular goddess that we have got this disease. So they again ignore treatments and it can lead to fatality. So beliefs are hard to change. So it was a paper by Schwartz et al. Who said that erroneous beliefs are hard to change. And we follow the strategy that they follow or they proposed in their review in our club as well to debunk the myths. So the first thing we do is search for evidence. So we come across a myth, or not necessarily a myth, we come across an information and we see if there is proper evidence for this information. For example, we see a message which is being circulated in a very rampant fashion in the social media. We take this, we see if there is proper evidence for this. By proper evidence, I mean evidence which is peer reviewed, which is has expert opinions on that, and not just articles or fake information without any credibility. And whether it is consistent, whether people have reinforced it in a good way over and over again, saying that okay, this is what it is and this is not what it claims to be. Credibility, as I said, there are certain journals that you believe, there are certain peer reviewed articles you believe, because you also have fake journals these days. There are journals which you cannot believe, the message which is spurious. A lot of journals are present these days which don't give the right information. So search and see if the journal in itself is credible. And coherence, whether it actually tells a story, whether it actually makes sense at the end of it. So these are some of the steps which are told by Schwartz et al. In their review paper, and this is exactly what we also follow in the club for debunking the myths. So why we use a multilingual approach is that in countries with a lingual diversity, say for example India where we stay and where no nonsense science club is functioning, there is a bigger problem. And the problem is that the practicing science communicators are very less, especially those who talk regional languages. We don't have science communicators in all the languages. We have several languages. There are so many official languages, and leave aside official languages, there are so many dialects, slangs which are present, and we don't have practicing science communicators in these languages. As a result of that, there is a very little access to resources as well. So we as a group, what we do is we have taken this responsibility to come together and debunk the myths and also make it accessible for people in languages where a lot of science communicators are not present. So we use multilingual approach to beat fiction with facts. Of course, the evidence that we have, the expert opinions that we have are prevalently present in English, but we take this and we convert, we translate it into other languages. For now, we are doing it in about 10 different languages, and we have seen good success in this. So, this is what we predominantly do in the club, and we use social media again as a medium to propagate this. Okay, like he said, something happens in social media, the fake information starts spreading through social media, beat it again through social media. So the strategy that we use is we hunt for myths, as I said. We debunk them using peer-reviewed research, expert opinions. Translation is the biggest part of the organization. We translate these articles, and these are an important point is that these are bite-sized articles, so we don't really write long articles because another thing about the human mind is our attention span is decreasing every day. So we want to give them bite-sized information, something from 50 to 100 words to a maximum of 200 words if it is a debunking article especially, and we start propagating it through social media. We ask people to read, understand. Even the information that we present might not be correct, so we ask people to think before forwarding it, and this has helped us debunk a lot of myths. So I'll tell about a couple of topics that we have worked on at the end of the presentation. So this is our homepage, the No Nonsense Science Club. So we translate articles in Bengali, Hindi, Kannada, Malayalam, Marathi, Odia, Punjabi, Tamil, Telugu, and Gujarati. We are also planning to include Indian Sign Language because again, that is a language which does not have enough resources. People don't have enough resources to understand science and science communication in Indian Sign Language. So these are some of the areas that which we work on. We have started series where we take a particular topic and we write a series of articles, as the name says. We have done it for immunity, where we talk about what is immunity. We talk about vaccination, what is a booster dose, a vaccination gap, a history of immunology, because science is nothing without history. So we also talk about the history of immunology. And the current series that we are working on is the menstrual cycle. Right now we have worked on the biology of the menstrual cycle. We'll be soon talking about the myths related to the menstrual cycle as well. And we also have the fake versus fact section where we talk about, predominantly we have talked about COVID, coronavirus, and so on. We also talk about astronomical myths, solar eclipse, the alignment of planets and how it influences your life, and so on. And one section that we work on, which is also a little sensitive, is the intersection of, is about writing and researching on the intersection of science and society. We write about marginalized communities and their access when it comes to science. We write about scientific temper. We write about different martyrs like Narendra Dabholkar, whose quote I started the presentation with, Gauri Lankesh, Kalburgi, and so on. So that brings us to the end of the presentation about the No Nonsense Science Club and the work that we predominantly do. So thank you so much for listening to the talk, and we can be reached at no nonsense science at gmail.com in case you have any question. And you can also go to www.nononsensescience.com for having a look at the articles. And if you're interested in working or contributing, you can please get in touch with us. So thank you again for listening to us.